differently because we know there is some sort of difference there. And it's a little different because it's an advantage if you're only at 2. Okay, so with that, I will get you back to Kate and let her talk about the overall meeting and some next steps of the study.
We'll just make this easy and stick it right here. All right, so financial knowledge, as I discussed in the beginning, as identified not only by Bartholomew and Fox, but most recently, financial knowledge is an important part of effective decision making, and based on the scores that we have, these men and women are not well prepared to make effective financial decisions. Race and education are important predictors of financial knowledge, and even in an advanced multivariate model, 2 incarcerations, now 0.05 is the key where we really pay attention, but 2 incarcerations as opposed to only being incarcerated once is very close to being a statistically significant predictor of higher financial knowledge. We don't know why, like Dr. Mack said, we're not going to hazard a guess at this point, but I am very curious to see what will happen in the future as I continue to work with this. The financial knowledge of soon-to-be-released offenders is extremely low. Like I said before, withholding from paychecks. They don't, in many cases, understand that concept. How to budget, how to minimize interest paid on credit cards, just as a few quick things that many people take for granted. But at the same time, if you're an educator, you have probably seen this time and time again, not just with inmates, but with people that you are working with, high school students, college students, civilians. With minimal financial knowledge, men and women who are restarting their financial lives are indeed are at risk for making ill-informed financial decisions. So just stop and think for a second, what does that mean that they might be more subject to? And we're talking, in this particular case, I'm thinking alternative financial services. What are they going to get themselves roped into? What are they not going to understand? Are they going to be more or less likely to participate in a retirement plan with 401k? You know, they already don't know what's being withheld as a standard, so would they be able to understand and comprehend if it were offered to them? Now, residents who leave transitional centers, at least within the state of Georgia, need to have these skills, and I do mean need to have these skills, because while some of them walk out with a $10 check because of monies owed to the system, while I was conducting research, I was in talking with one of the superintendents, and that day he showed me, he just signed a $10,000 check that somebody was walking out with. Now, I don't know about you, I had $10,000. I'm fully informed. I still might not make the ultimate optimal decision. I gotta have some shoes, I need a new dress, something. But stop and think about that. You've been locked up for however many number of years. And now you're walking out with $10,000 and minimal financial knowledge. Where's that money gonna go? And it's not gonna hang around very long. So, as a recap, purpose was to investigate financial knowledge of inmates in Georgia's transitional center system. Again, convenient sample, but I feel very happy with the results and with the sample that I was able to obtain. We needed to identify the financial knowledge needs of offenders preparing to return to society. I've got a list now of things that these inmates are not really grasping and that are going to be important as they transition back. Attempted to collect a representative sample of inmates within Georgia's transitional center system. It's not perfect, but we're making steps that have not been taken before, and I'm psyched about it. And again, I wanted to draw attention to the Jumpstart instrument. It covers this huge breadth of topics, and it is a very excellent starting place to follow up on what Koenig suggested in 2007, and I'm looking forward to using it again some more. Limitations of this study. Like we said, we can't explain, we're not going to hazard a guess, but we don't know why 2 incarcerations makes you that much more statistically likely to have higher financial knowledge. One thing that I can go back and check, but again, we're only looking at a very small percentage of people that have had prior financial education, and so I don't think that that's the key, because the rest of the piece and puzzle does not come together. So I don't know why that one is. More investigation is necessary in order to provide support for policy change. Long, big story, happy, joy. Best results I could see from this is that we get something statewide to start, nationwide at the end as a policy to require financial education, because they're going to be faced with it. You know, 6 months away, 3 months away prior to going out, they're doing reintegration. Let's stick in there some financial education so that these men and women are prepared. And of course, the data set needs further theoretical review. That's my problem as a researcher, as a student, but stopping to think, I'm going to go back to that investigation, needing to provide support for policy change. If you are looking to make a difference in your community, I'm not saying these people need a handout. I'm not saying that you owe them anything. This is completely different. I used to work with the military, now I'm working with the incarcerated, two completely different types of groups. But these are men and women that need a hand up, need to have some sort of extra hand up to handle what is coming. And providing this education is a great way to actually benefit your community, because these are the men and women that are going back that are making good choices, bad choices, other choices, but that financial knowledge does impact what's going on. I would definitely like to thank the men and women who participated from the Georgia Transitional Centers between the months of July and November of 2015. Tommy Fountain came last year and was able to attend. He was absolutely instrumental, and he is still helping me get people in and continue to teach this. Jessica's going to be able to start doing that pretty soon from UG. I'm psyched about that. And then all the Georgia Transitional Center superintendents were very welcoming. So here's what I want you to get out of that. Wardens, superintendents, they're looking for people. They're looking for professionals who are accredited, who are qualified to come in and give unbiased financial education. We have a start, we have a curriculum, we have options. Really quick, I'll get to future research options, and then I will turn it over to Stacia. Strain theory comes from the criminal justice side of the life. So what financial strains might be influencing criminal behaviors? Do they not know how to budget? Do they not know how to save? Do they not have the money in case of emergency? We were talking earlier today, we don't have a lot of money in savings. $400, average American couldn't come up with $400 in case of emergency. What kind of financial strains are these men and women facing, and how might that influence criminal behavior? Behavioral life cycle theory. So how do offenders view their income and their financial responsibilities? How is willpower associated with their financial decision making? Do they have the ability to resist temptation? Do offenders consider themselves to be present or future oriented? Present, using a pawn shop, future oriented, using a bank. So what might we find there? And then theory of planned behavior, specifically looking at their financial intentions after release. How do their attitudes regarding money and banking and some of these things influence those intentions? What is their reality from their friends and their family members regarding making informed and appropriate financial decisions and saving and budgeting? And then do they believe that they have the control over their money and their situation in order to make these things happen? So with that, I am going to turn it over to Stacia, and then I will be back to answer any questions.
I just want to give Kate a round of applause. I think, and Dr. Mack. And so Kate asked me to be the discussant for this session. And last year I sat in on her session not knowing that anyone else in this field did anything with prisoners. So when I saw her session in the booklet last year, I was so excited because I'm actually doing, I actually teach in a facility. So not only do I get to see the research side of it, I get to apply it in practice. So it's very exciting. So a couple things I just want to point out that I thought were really, again, interesting from today were that race is an indicator of what's going on with financial knowledge. That's a big one. Also that education, if they didn't finish high school or if they have it under a GED, that is also an indicator that they're not learning or that they need that financial knowledge. So, sorry. I'm a little nervous. You're okay. You're okay. Stuff. So I did think it was also interesting, and I know that you didn't think it was significant that after being incarcerated more than for the second time that there was a positive association there, and I just thought that was a really interesting thing. So one of the things, you know, when you look from the research to practice, we needed this research in this field. I can tell you that we saw all the research basically that's in this field of working with prisoners and working with the incarcerated and transitional centers. We need more of it, and I am so thankful that Kate is doing this because, I mean, without that, some of this I couldn't even get to go work in the facility that I work in. So having that really does help out because it helps us to get inside those facilities and start working with those people who really do need it. So So now that we know that it's needed, we know that, especially through the transitional centers, that they are looking for that education. Having that curriculum is going to be really key for that as well. Knowing, now we know what they need to know, let's move forward and teach that to them. Getting that taken care of and everything like that. So, I kind of want to ask, like throw it up for questions.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like there are a lot of questions and I'm super nervous.
Let's do it. No worries, girlfriend. Yes, ma'am.
I have actually a couple. I work with veterans and I work with the treatment courts, 3 of them specifically in Ohio. The recidivism rate there is very, very low. It's between the 3 courts, it's under 6%, which is amazing. Yeah, one of them is only 4%. So my question is it was very interesting the fact that you had one of the prisoners, and I believe the quote was something along the fact that this is great, I'm glad you're here because this is why most of us are here. So what was the correlation, or did you find any, between the actual conviction and the financial fall? if you
Okay.
will?
So that, just to clarify, that was from a study that was done prior to mine. It was one that I found for support. But in terms of the conviction, that is one thing that I did not measure with this study. I went into it very, very carefully. However, I will be hopefully wrapping up the candidacy and proposing for my dissertation in the spring. And one of the key things that I'm looking to add to the study is what is the offense and how does that have anything to do with it? Because if it's drugs, if it's money, maybe we can draw some connections. Whereas if opposed to, oh God forbid, sexual assault or something like that, maybe we would find a bigger difference. One of the things I did notice, now this is just off the top of my head, something that I read recently, in the book on general strain theory by Robert Agnew, he has a rapist actually cited, there's a quote in his book, talking about how the rapist was feeling particularly strained and he had major financial issues. And he went out to the bar that night and he saw a girl who was going and spending money and having this really great time, and gosh darn it, he was going to show her who was boss. So we don't know right now, and this is a wide range. Absolutely, I think that you and I could have a discussion, we could say, yeah, probably. We don't have the research. That is definitely part of my plan for once I propose the dissertation. That is going to be key to what I'm looking at.
The second thing is I would really, really love this PowerPoint. Is this going to be available to us?
If you would get with me right after this, I will get your email address. I'd be thrilled to send it to you. Okay, can I hold on you, Mike, so I can get back here? I'll get you later if I have to. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I know some people in the state of Washington, and some of these guys are in there, but they were drug dealers.
Yes.
They can use drugs.
Mhm.
And find out that these guys know how to manage money, or that's just a comment, but when they get out, they go to the halfway house, they force them to do classes about taking drugs. And we have nothing, that situation has nothing to do with it. Selling drugs, and they were good businessmen, and they knew how to manage money. So now the question is, for people who were doing drugs, they didn't know how to manage money, it doesn't seem like they put in the emphasis on giving these people in front of people to help them learn how to manage money. But it just seems like it's a topic. So it seems like you're there, but do they make it a mandate for them to see people?
Okay, so the project that I did last year for the transitional center that I was in, it was a requirement for the transitional center, for Augusta Transitional Center. And one of the things that I'm working with UGA, and in particular Jessica in this case, is getting this in to the transitional centers as a requirement as they come into the transitional center system. Tommy Fountain, who is the head of the Georgia Transitional Center system, is fully in support. And I think one of the things that's terrific about that is as we build momentum, that's going to start to spread. And really what it is it's going in, and unfortunately, we know, just walking down the street, there's an issue, we need to educate. But it's proving ourselves, saying, okay, so now I'm going to teach this class, and if you will be so generous as to allow me, I will do a collection of pre-test and post-test data, and I will show you that it is significantly impacting what they know. And I do have a curriculum, I do have an instrument that you could use if you wanted to try that and to get in there. And it's about making contacts and talking to people and saying, okay, this is why it's important. And we don't have a lot of research, but we do have some to say, okay, we're starting and we're making some progress. So this is why it's important. This is what I want to do for you. I don't want any money for it because you're not going to get any money from the Department of Corrections. It's just not going to happen. But let's go in. Let me do this as a service to your facility, and you will, by and large, find superintendents, find boards who are interested in having you come in to do that. So the opportunity is there. It's just a matter of asking the right questions and persistence. Persistence. Mike.
So I have, of course, a million questions, but just, can I ask two?
You may.
All right, so the first question is so because of the second offense, did you guys look at, like I heard you guys say that you didn't have the convictions, but did you look at like the education level and compare that? Did you look at the distribution?
Not yet.
Okay.
That is on the list. So Mike's question is did we look at the relationship between the education and the second offense, the education and the third offense, and what's the education? We did not do that for this study. It is possible to do. I even know how to code it. So it is something that we can do. We did not do that for that, and that's a really great way to move that forward. So yes, thank you for that.
Okay. And my other question would be, so because you almost have a natural experiment here where you have probably a good portion of people incarcerated have undiagnosed behavior disorders, and then you might have another portion that have IEPs where they have a diagnosed behavior disorder, and you can, maybe it would be interesting to see if there's a if the maybe education interventions that some of these prisoners received when they were younger because they had an IEP, maybe that has an impact on whether they're on their financial knowledge.
Okay, so I'm tracking with what you're saying, and I'm going to rabbit trail from that just a little bit, because one of the things that I did not discuss in here is that I did also collect information regarding the ways that the inmates self-identified as best learning. And even though I don't have the information here, hands-on learning, which is what speaks to the Illinois Extension project, hands-on learning as opposed to maybe listening or reading, though those were things that were identified, tying in with that IEP piece. Also, I have asked for permission from Tommy, once I get the dissertation proposal approved, to go in and be able to at least access IQ information. I may not be able to get the diagnosis information, but to have that IQ information would also be informative to what we're able to do. So that's a really good point. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yes, ma'am. And then I'll get you.
Did you find, because I know that your sample was a small percentage of women versus men.
Yes.
Any difference in how they responded to the test, how they responded after?
The numbers that we have really were too small to come up with anything. When I go back to Georgia for my dissertation, my goal right now is to do all my data collection except expand it. I'm only going to do quantitative dissertation, so I will expand it to anybody within 6 months of release with an emphasis on women. So if I can get 159, gosh darn it, I'm going to sit there at those 2 transitional centers. If I have to do it 2 times a day in order to get the women who are at work and who are not at work, then that's what I'm going to do, because I really think that there is something there for gender differences. I just wasn't able to capture it. You're absolutely right.
So
Yes.
you mean you're going to oversample women?
Yes, oversample women.
Well,
Yes.
no, I just
Yes,
want.
I am. But my
Yeah,
intention
because-
is to oversample women. Yes.
Do you look as they were married or single? I don't know. If
I did not ask that. That is something, actually, there is somebody who has committed to being on my dissertation committee who said, hey, you know, these are some indicators that we find are effective, and she's from criminal justice, that are effective in decreasing recidivism and marital status, particularly married, not just cohabitating, is key. So that is something that I will be asking. That one I just missed altogether. That one I missed. So yes, thank you. Yes.
Hey, it's in the paper I was saying.
I was in the paper you sent me. Nice. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
This really doesn't have anything to do with your study, and I really appreciate doing this. For the last year, I worked with a COSA program, Circles of Support and Accountability.
Okay.
So I've been working with 3 different people. The challenge is when you tell them about this financial education, you have to also have them have a place where they can go so they can learn how to build their credit. And in my town, there's a bank, and they say, in order to get a credit building loan, they need to have 2 people that'll help them go do this. I know there's other things, but just there's some things that give them big barriers that we do not need to have any more barriers. They're not giving them any money in this product anyway. It's a credibility thing where they have a savings account. So they're not, the bank is not losing a dime.
And you know, it's interesting, I'm glad that you mentioned that. The qualitative project that I did after this, we put it together, we did a qualitative study that we finally now have results for, and there are barriers to banking. And then looking, when we did a mixed method study, we identified some more barriers. So that is in the works. I'm glad that you brought it up because I now do have some evidence to support that right there.
If you could convince those financial institutions.
That is one of the points with that mixed method study is to say, listen, we've got men and women that are being released, and in particular, men and women who are being released from transitional centers that only have their prison ID. Okay, it's not like they're going to share it if they have anything else. But can we please get a bank account open? So that is one of the things that I'm trying to get moved on. Yes, ma'am.
One of the hardest things on reentry though is getting your driver's license.
Yep.
Anybody will tell you can't get the bank account without the driver's license. So there's a huge delay.
Getting their idea back.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that I'm hoping to do with that other study is to say to the banks, listen, you've got this Community Reinvestment Act. We need to take into consideration these men and women. We do have a state ID, so let's do something with it. And I've been given the notice to wrap the copy up. So thank you all so very, very much for your time today.